conflict between House Steiner and House Davion rages on.
Was it smart for the Archon to hire mercenaries to deal with the bandit army on Carver 5?
Kelly knows that once the bandits are dealt with, the mercenaries will pull out.
Hello and welcome everyone to the First Circuit Podcast, episode 44. Today your hosts are Bida. Say hello.
Hello.
There's an old Bob.
Rawr.
Who is apparently
Rawr.
silent.
There you go.
Unless he was. And of course there's me, IanDresarie. As for topics today, we are kind of light, so we're going over the Hero sale, which is now over. Some of the other stuff that's going on Mechwarrior Online, including the Snuggles rewards that will be coming soon. Quick mention about the how many gold? Lawsuit. And then we're gonna dive into the story of Battletech finally. So as for our first topic, Hero sale. Who wants to go for that?
Well, basically, I think it was a good sale. I mean, 50% off Hero mechs. It was just incredible. Almost every single Hero mech was on sale. In fact, every single Hero mech was on sale. They also had bonus MC like they normally have. How many mechs you guys pick up during the sale?
There was one hero that wasn't on sale, I think, and that was the Piranha hero. Because all the Piranhas are only available for MC, and they usually don't do sales for mechs in that state. So, yeah, it is all the heroes except one.
Except one,
I think.
Minus one.
In-game store, yes.
But the standard 30% bonus C-bill, like C-bills, and then every mech hero but one was on sale. I picked up the Golden Boy and I picked up the Grey Death Legion, and I'm having a blast with the Grey Death Legion. It's absolutely amazing. But I haven't tried the Golden Boy yet, though. But I'll probably try those out this weekend.
So yeah, I picked up the Quick Draw hero because I saw those people do really well and I kind of wanted to try it, and it's actually a really good mech. And I picked up on Bida's recommendation the Anansi Spider, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I got that one too.
Scratch them to death.
It was super cheap and it's super hilarious.
Yeah.
Scratch them to death, huh?
Yeah, it has like a crazy range and cooldown quirk for its missile hardpoint, so you could put a Streak 6 in there and smack people at 320 or so meter range.
Oh wow!
After being skilled up, and it also has range quirks on its, I think at least its energy. So I put 2 small lasers, and I'm just scratching them with small lasers, Streak 6, and 2 machine guns, dancing in front of the enemy at like 300 meters range. It's really tough for them to shoot back, and you're just slowly wearing them down and being a little fly buzzing around, in the room that you just can't swat. Get back here.
Nice.
Yeah, I also picked up the Grey Death, the IV4, and the Misery.
Okay.
A whole bunch of MC saved up from the events.
That's what I did too. I think for the Golden Boy, I did have to spend like $7 for some C-bills, but I think it'd be worth it though. Like I'll make it to a Guitar 18 plus. It'll be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, as ever, like the heroes are usually at least a slight twist on the usual formulas that are available for most mechs. It's already, I mean, the sale's already over, so I'm not sure there's much point suggesting things. But obviously, like, the IV4, the quick draw hero, as Ian said, it is a beast of a mech. It's got the best quick draw agility, got a whole bunch of armor quirks, and really strong weapon quirks on top of it.
Yeah, it's already over, which kind of sucks. They should maybe, hey, Brush, make it for longer. People want these mechs.
Yeah, it was only for 4 days.
It was short. But speaking of stuff that's still going on, a quick reminder, the Solaris 7 Hero Pack sale is still going on until July the 5th, and that's, in my opinion, a really sweet deal. $20 for 7 Hero mechs.
Yeah, that's actually a really good deal. And the mechs aren't that bad. Not too best, but they're not that bad.
I wonder how much like the sale was shortened because there's the loot bag event going on. The loot bag event is giving a lot of MC away, but I was like, oh gosh, I wanted to earn all the MC from the first 100 bags, but also the 25s from Canada Day and Independence Day. that would really stretch my budget to get some really cool
Mhm.
stuff. But obviously I couldn't min-max it as I with that short window they gave for us.
Yeah, sadly.
True.
But speaking of Canada Day and Independence Day, Canada Day is tomorrow.
June 1st.
At the time of the recording, it's tomorrow, so July
Yeah.
1st, and of course July 4th, Independence Day. You can
July
grab up
1st, not
to
June,
25
sorry.
extra loot bags on those days.
And you could double dip as well, I think. If you earn the 100 match score, which is fairly easy enough, you get just the regular ones from the 100 loot bags, and you can dip into the 25s from those two.
True.
Really nice.
And then July 4th as well, too. Cool. Yeah. Not bad. Pretty good stuff. So what do we got next?
The thing that probably none of us really did.
So Harmony Gold lawsuit, of course, as we covered last week, or some time ago, was at least we heard that it has been dropped with Piranha Games, and now it's more officially come out. Russ has made a statement, and Catalyst Games as well made a statement. Basically, the case has been dropped with prejudice, so Harmony Gold can't come back and make the same claims again. They have to convince a judge that this is that what they're coming forward with next is something truly, is a new, different lawsuit case.
They'll do it again, though.
They'll do it again in future with some other time an unseen mech is used, perhaps. We think Mechwarrior is safe, but at least for now, they can't point to the Mechwarrior Online store and say, "Hey, look at the pictures of the Phoenix Hawk. It looks very similar to our original artwork." That has been dropped with prejudice.
Good. Very, very nice.
Yep. Both the official statements, just we're glad that we've come to a good agreement with Harmony Gold, and we're glad that all our players can play their games happily in future. So for now, it's over with. Huzzah!
So, the interesting thing is though, they settled it, so the judge didn't dismiss it. They settled it outside of court. I'd be interested in seeing what kind of settlement agreement they have, but at least for now it's over.
Yeah, and people are wondering what prompted this settlement.
I'm gonna assume that PGI just wanted to get on with Mechwarrior 5 and use those mechs there.
Yeah,
and
plus
that's probably why they rushed it.
Yeah, plus Catalyst Games as well too wants to start bringing out some stuff, and they're just coming out with their box set pretty soon. I think in August, I believe. They're like new box set with all the different mechs and everything else. They want to bring out those mechs. And then I actually tweeted Russ, and first thing when he actually said about the PGI lawsuit was I responded saying, "Please, $20 for the Stinger Wasp package. I think that'd be the greatest thing that they can do. For 2 mechs for $10. It doesn't have to be the greatest thing in the world, but just have it out there and have fun. Just have fun with it."
Did you respond to that?
What's that?
Did you respond to that?
You just put a little heart sound heart thing basically on my Twitter.
A little heart thing on your Twitter. All right.
Hey, I got notice me, senpai. Notice me. It's just good that now Harmony Gold can't bring it with extreme prejudice. They can't bring in more lawsuits. It's nice. Probably won't hear from for about 10 more years until when the next franchise, when someone else picks up Mechwarrior. I don't know. Just Harmony Gold just needs to burn in hell.
Okay.
So one thing we kind of skipped over is the Solaris event. No, Solaris reward thingy. That's what I was actually going to segue into, because I don't think any of us actually played Solaris all that much past couple of weeks.
5 times, I think.
Yeah, about that much.
Yeah, about that much.
So, Bida, are you getting any first place rewards?
No, I didn't play Solaris that much.
Alright. So, yeah, Solaris rewards. Depending on your placement, first, second, third, top 10, 2,500, 500,000, 2,500, 5,000, and 10,000. You get different rewards per division. So,
see, top 100, you get 3 million and a Solaris Warhorn and a 100 MC. Okay, and that's per division too.
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. If you really want to spend all that time in Solaris, there are some rewards if you spent a lot of effort climbing to the tippy top.
Well,
Otherwise,
sorry.
though, I mean, I don't care much for the GXP rewards. In fact, thankfully, they sort of drop that after it gets past the 250,000 GXP mark. But I mean, it's like if you work a fair bit and you get into the top 500, it doesn't take too much effort. You're getting 1 million sea bills and 250,000 GXP and the Solaris Warhorn. But I mean, it's for those who really like climbing the leaderboards, and at least for most of us in the podcast, I don't think we really cared much for that personally.
No.
I think though that most people would get in the top 100 no problem. I mean, I'm literally though like and that's per division. So I would think that everybody who actually just even plays a couple games would get 100 MC, 3 million C bills, and a Warhorn, and that's because I don't think there's a lot of people playing it though. So top
I
100
don't
would
think
be
the player
easy.
base is that small, Bob.
What's that?
So it's
I
not
don't think
that
the player
small.
base is that small.
I don't know, man. Oh, okay. Even top 500 GXP will be 250,000. That's crappy, and then 1 million like C bills. So and then Warhorn. So I mean, if you just play a couple games, 100 to top 500 to 100, you're gonna get in no problem.
The most valuable thing for me in this whole shebang would just be getting a Solaris Warhorn. The Warhorn has got more value to me than a little, some C bills or some GXP. I just add those to the piles, and events give away millions of C bills already. It's like that's a lot of effort just to get 1 million C bills or more.
I agree.
Oh yeah, definitely the Warhorns. The cosmetic items like paint jobs and Warhorns are like the most and plus MC are one of the things that I enjoy getting through like events no matter what, because like you've been saying, GXP and C bills are just like a dime a dozen.
Yeah, the MCs is nice, but it's at least for the relative amount of money you're getting for the effort you're putting in, it's a
Yeah.
very poorly paying job. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a token, reward. And again, at least to some degree, at least, what is it? Events give MC much more reliably, much more consistently, and you get to play with your friends.
Hold on, do you have friends?
No,
No.
He's a computer. He doesn't have friends.
I'm just talking in a broad sense. Didn't need to include myself.
Okay.
No, you've made our computer sad, Bob.
What's that?
As far as the computer gets sad.
Exactly.
I am kind of interested how the Warhorns sound, particularly like the Champion Warhorn. That might be a badge of honor, pride, wherever it takes it. But at least they are doing some kind of rewards for Solaris and competitive. So there's some incentive to play them. It's not just you sitting in a room trying to face on 1-1 or do 8v8 battles, and PGI never even just gives you a token, food, little pellets of food at the end.
Yeah.
All right, so we crack on with the last main topic for this podcast: Battletech.
Yes,
It's
Battletech.
setting and story. And since at least Bobs hasn't finished the story, I thought going into setting a bit more would help be able to include him and Ian a lot better.
well, the story is pretty much you win, period, and that's how it works. So if you guys give me some spoilers, it doesn't really matter. I guess it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Not too much, but I would say generally speaking, like at least yes, you go through a storyline of there's a civil war and you fight in it type stuff. But I heard people at least when it came out, it's like, oh, I love all the lore and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I liked it that there's text descriptions for things people were referring to. But to me, I wasn't really expecting this from Battletech, or at least it didn't feel like it really did the setting necessarily much justice. And to start with, at least, the question is, okay, we are set down at the bottom side of the map at the periphery. What kind of character do you think a game set in the periphery should have? Because if you ask me, the game didn't really sell much. It didn't sell the periphery to me. It didn't feel that much of an interesting setting.
Well, one thing about the periphery though, like there isn't like hordes of freaking mechs out there and like SRM boats and everything. I mean, literally, if you got one mech on the planet, you rule the planet. And so like mech parts and everything else in the periphery, since it got so devastated through the first, second, third, and fourth, succession wars, which obviously didn't happen right now. But during that time, parts were almost non-existent. Mechs were almost non-existent. All they had was literally maybe some tanks, some vehicles, a bunch of troops with guns, and that's about it. So the whole setting, as far as like the feel of the periphery, is totally gone out of this game. I love Hairbrained Schemes, what they did. Don't get me wrong, but the whole feel of the periphery. I mean, the king crabs, like fighting hordes of king crabs and atlases. No, this does not happen in the periphery. If you had an atlas, you're ruling 10 planets, literally. Like, but you got to have a jump ship and a drop ship. But literally, the feel and the setting of it is non-existent, man.
Yeah, to maybe give some more context for potential casual Battletech fans, the periphery, as the name suggests, is fairly far away from the home planet of humanity. Hence, it got settled fairly late. Hence, the colonies are, compared to other colonies, fairly new, and the tech level is low.
Very low.
It has been kind of ignored during the main succession wars after the fall of the Star League, which led to many of those really new colonies being left without supplies, which means their tech level dropped even further. That's basically the whole setting of the periphery. Super low tech level, super low density of population. You don't really have a lot of military power, and most of the planets are fairly up to very much independent. So there's not that much unification going on. It's mostly everyone for himself.
Yeah.
That's the setting of the periphery that Battletech should have tried to sell a bit better.
Yeah, there's some ways you could go about this, right? At least in terms of selling a setting. So one thing they sort of do some of this is, the laws of the nation. So there are, at least in text descriptions, about stuff like, I think, was it a glitch who just gets accused of doing a crime and gets chucked into jail because, these are the outreaches of civilization. It's really a lot of effort to put together a jury and have a proper trial case when the people who are in power here have a lot more sweeping jurisdiction. And they do this at the very beginning where was it your dropship? Of course, the banks are being really mean to you.
Yeah.
They just want to reclaim the dropship and all your assets, and there's a possibility if you tick them off enough that maybe loan sharks or something like that. I never got to that point, but you have to deal with dodgy banks. You have to deal with dodgy laws and legislations. You've got lots of criminals, pirates. At least there's a lot of pirates out there.
Yeah.
And the tech level is incredibly low, but the only way they represent the tech level is a lot of the enemies you fight have like 50% armor, 25% armor. They don't have full armor. Like, apparently just putting slabs of armor onto the mechs is the most difficult thing, but keeping the PPC running is easy peasy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Because I was sort of half expecting, like, this is something like Mechwarrior 5 alluded to. Who knows how well it'll be implemented? But obviously, like, a weapon wasn't working when you started up, and like an actuator isn't moving. So, if you had mechs with shoddy components, so that they kind of hobble when they walk, they have less movement speed, or they can't turn as well, etc., etc. They have more difficulties with aiming, and you have to sort of cobble together actuators and all these other bits and pieces. And just having a fully functioning mech is special in itself. Or if an actuator gets damaged, it's really hard to replace. That was sort of what I was expecting in the periphery, and that's totally something you do in mechanics. But obviously, at least this game is fairly bare bones, and with the resources they had available, implementing all of that stuff would take a lot of effort.
Well, I do know that basically they had to put something together like that, and basically, would you want to go play a game where you could barely hobble to the enemy and go shoot your PPC type of thing? You probably wouldn't. You want to have king crabs and the atlases and all that kind of stuff. So the theory, basically, the overall concept is lost in the setting. Now, if the setting was done during the Fourth Succession War, let's say your Merc unit on the Davion front line against Lao, because that's when Davion actually went ahead and said, "Hey, here's my present to you." And then in 3028, here's Lao. Have fun with it, Katrina Steiner, type of thing. So, if the setting was more towards there, it'd be a little bit more realistic per se. But I understand why they had it in the periphery. They wanted to have, just like you're saying, slabs of armor. They had 25% armor, 50%, 50% armor and everything. So they wanted to have that. It's a shoddy, it's a pirate band with only 25% armor. But once you start fighting the house units and everything, they have 100% armor and everything. That's kind of how they dictated like what it is. But it's also too the drop system for the salvage. 3 parts make a mech. They didn't want to make it too complicated, but I think if HBS made it so it's a little bit more complicated, just like you're talking about with the actuators and everything else, if they made it a little bit more complicated, I think it would have done a lot better. It might have it for the hardcore diehard hardcore fans like myself, Ian and a bunch of other people. I think that would have been more of a concept of just having the feel and the immersion effect into Battletech instead of like, oh, I got 3 parts kicking, I can make a mech, type of thing. Just doesn't really it doesn't feel. It's like, oh, look, I'm fighting on a pirate planet with 4 king crabs. Okay, that's cool. Basically king crabs. I mean, that makes almost unheard of, like in the periphery. Normally light and medium mechs were the only ones that were really out there. If you have a heavy mech, say like a Warhammer would be like 1 PPC is missing, so they replace it with a large laser, and the SRM6 is missing, so they replace it with the SRM2 because they couldn't find any parts and everything. If they had it like that, the immersion effect would be so much better. But I understand why they did that kind of stuff, though.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, go ahead, Ian.
Since we were talking about king crabs don't happen, that's also one major thing that HBS was very limited. And like, I understand the decision, but it's still fairly hard. So basically, they imported the models from PGI, and PGI obviously designs the mechs that are popular, that are going to sell, because they run a multiplayer game. But in result, we get a lot of games in a lot of mechs in Battletech that technically do not exist at this time frame. Best example is the Highlander. If you're lucky, you may encounter 1 Highlander in your lifetime in 3025.
Maybe. Basically, we're talking like. Sorry, go ahead.
Encounter 3 of them per mission. So.
I know.
That's basically the thing that infuriates me personally the most. But again, I know where it's coming from, and I know they couldn't do anything against that.
I mean, that's partly the problem with the salvage system, though, is that you do need to actually come across these mechs a lot of times to reliably get enough salvage to, actually make one of your own.
Yeah. Like maybe there's a Highlander, like say Davion has one hidden in some bunker someplace. He has 1 Highlander that he saved from the 4 Succession Wars or 3 of them. They're just sitting down. It's like, look, I have a Highlander. This is pretty cool kicking, guys, huh? That type of thing. But I mean, they're like super duper rare. And just like you're talking like Ian, it's like, look, there's 3 Highlander and a Black Knight kick. Oh, and these are pirates. Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the, this goes all into my point of that you have a place, a setting, and I've heard people relate to the periphery saying it's kind of like, relatively speaking, sort of the Wild West of this universe. That it's the frontier. There's not so much way of law. There's not so much in the way of civilization. But obviously there are still towns with a local sheriff, and if you piss off the sheriff, he could just chuck you in jail, kind of stuff. And if it was going for something like with Wild West, I would totally love, instead of this generic orchestral if it had a bit more kind of sounded like Rebel Galaxy, a bit more twang to it, a little more attitude,
what are you talking about?
Oh, you're talking about the music.
Talking about the music. The music is generic orchestral
spaghetti western music.
At least some attitude to it, some grit, some grime, Yeah,
that's a point I actually understand.
I mean,
we had an argument about music earlier.
Yeah. I did like the music, though. Like, it was good. But yeah, you are right though. If it had some type of spaghetti western music or something like that, in general, the based off of it is a Wild West. When the Starleague kicked the asses of the RimWorld Republic and the first, second, third succession wars happened, no ships were coming out here. Nothing was going out here. Jump ships were being destroyed in the first succession war, and so nothing was, no supplies, no parts, no anything was coming out these other planets. So they were cut off from civilization, and so it is like you said, like the Wild West. Nothing
there's
there.
some interesting.
If I may, real quick, do one more thing with the Wild West analogy. If you go in a town you already been to, there's a really good chance you're gonna know the sheriff, right? Because he has quite a lot of authority. And that's kind of something that I really hope HBS delivers in the future, because I would have loved to see that at launch. At launch. More character for the planetary governments. So basically, I mentioned earlier, it's in the periphery, it's kind of everyone for themselves, but it also means that every planet has a different character. Every ruler is completely different. One planet's going to be ruled by a pirate, who's obviously not going to pay you well and potentially betray you. Another one might be ruled by a democracy, who are super honorable. And that's not something that's in the current state reflected really well. And that's something that I can totally see to increase the immersion of the setting.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
I guess so. Though obviously, to some degree, though, like if the funny thing with real life, like Wild West, kind of like in real life, when you think about the Wild West or Australia during the more settlement times, there is actually some degree of honor between thieves, and democracies aren't necessarily the most honorable all the time. If a politician thinks he can get one over on you and win the next election, he's going to be a scumbag and do that to you. Whereas pirates, at least, if you gain a reputation of stabbing people in the back, no one's going to work with you. And then you have no way to coordinate with those around you. If you shoot everyone on sight, everyone's going to shoot you on sight. And that is going to make your lifespan dramatically shorter than if you somewhat have a live and let live attitude and some level of, we can work with these guys.
Also, too, like during lore, the mercs actually had a code of honor type thing. So, like, if they knew that, like, say he has a battalion versus your 12 mechs, and he says, hey, if you surrender, I'll let you go, type thing. They'll let him go because they, their whole thing is it's taking that planet or taking that thing, like, taking the power plant, like whatever, basically. So there was honor among mercenary units, and then even if you got captured, a lot of times they'll actually say, here is. Here you are, here's your mech and everything, go to your unit type thing, because they really, really didn't want to destroy each other unless they had some feud, like say, Waker Rangers against Wolf Dragoons. And that's a big feud that they did have, which was later settled in the Jihad. But the whole thing is, though, that there was honor. Yeah, well, bombed, nuclear bomb type thing.
The nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Let's call it settled.
Oh, yeah. But the thing is, though, there was a lot of honor among mercenary like units, and then also like house units. Normally, what they would do is go and capture the other either house units or actually the merc units and sell them back, or even mercenaries would do that too. They'll sell them back to the units.
Yeah, that at least in a more real, like in real life kind of things, if you have things where like mechs are being handed down from throughout the generations, and the mech warriors are somewhat like knights, as often is alluded to, like in the original pitch of this game and whatnot. There's a lot more value in actually just capturing mechs and mech warriors and ransoming them to other noble families, or at least when you're part of the aristocracy, sometimes that money is way better than just slitting someone's throat. And similarly, at least as a mercenary or a pirate or whatever, particularly in the case, for example, pirates, it's you actually want to not necessarily burn down every village you come across, because those people are actually your lifeline. If you piss off all the locals, then you have no one to turn to. Whereas if you're more buddy with them, and everyone hates the sheriff, you have more free reign to be lawless, and you can always jump in someone's basement.
Hence Walking Dead.
So yeah, at least in the very periphery with all the independent governments, that is certainly the case. It is completely Wild West, just little towns and settlements, so to speak, scattered around in the vastness of space. But the other places in the map, of course, like at least on, for me, when I hear the periphery, I think it's the edge of the galaxy. And this includes the Taurian Concordant, the Arano Coalition, and the Magistry of Canopus.
Yeah.
These are periphery nations, and they do actually have a unified culture, government, that holds the band of stars together, and they are actually more developed.
Well, yeah, since they had jump ships and everything else. One of the main things about those different groups of people, like through the periphery, is they actually have like I said, unified government. They actually have their planets working together. They have a system where they have jump ships going from planet to planet, making sure supplies are being brought back and forth just to go trade with different, like different other planets. So, and plus they have their own standing army. And a lot of worlds in the periphery had I have 200 people with like machetes and one light and like one locust type thing, and that's basically like what you have for your army. But the Canopus and those other ones, they actually have regiments of troops. Like I think during 3025, Canopus had like 16 regiments, and they had like 4 or 5 different merc units working for them. And they also had jump ships, so they could go anywhere they want to. It just they didn't do that because they don't want because they have Free Worlds League right next to them, which is kind of foaming at the mouth to go take them over. But that's generally like what it would be like during that time for those major governments.
Yeah, basically magic governments. You've got a standoff, so the periphery nations are too weak to be a major player, but strong enough that it would be too costly for everyone else to attack them. Especially the Taurians with their Starlink era automated space defense system. that is still insane that they have that.
Well, that's a funny thing, at least. So the Taurians actually have quite a bit of a history, of course, and at least looking into Sana and the stuff about that, they were actually on a similar level to the Great Houses, and they were renowned for actually having a very good education system. And of course, they have a fairly strong militaristic bent because of their tiffs with the Davians.
Yeah.
But obviously, they are a shadow of their former selves because of the Reunification War. But to talk about the Reunification War, I think we need to look at something that the game introduces us with, the introductory cinematic, the Star League.
Sure.
I think Ian did a video, didn't you? Looking through the...
Yes, I did a 5-minute breakdown on the intro.
Yes, and at least within this context, I had one particular bone to pick with you on that, and that you missed Ian Cameron's line, the only part of the intro that actually relates to where we are, where he talks about the periphery. Do you remember what he's what he quipped? He said, "We will bring the periphery in line." And I was like, that's the only line that ties this intro cinematic to the game.
Wait
and you missed it.
I missed them.
You missed
yes!
that.
You go through it in detail, and you care so little about the periphery. You don't even care. You don't notice that one line. It's the only time it matters.
Unfriended.
Whoopsie.
I've been holding on to that bone for a while, but anyway. So one thing I would say with this game is it has a major obsession with the Star League. In fact, in terms of, it's set in the periphery, but it doesn't really feel like the periphery.
Yeah.
But you do know what it tells us about? Remember the Star League? The intro is, hey, do you remember the Star League? And then you get Lady Arano at the beginning, and she's like, oh, the stuff's going on, and my daddy told me about the Star League. And then obviously you get, you help dig up a Star League ship. Ooh, and then you get given the Star League ship, and then you found there's a Star League cache, so you get a Star League decryption key, and then you find the Star League base, and then you go to the Star League base, you play with a Star League lance, you get a Star League mech, And finally, we're actually mostly done with the frickin' Star League.
I think though that like you being okay, this is spoiler alert, so if you guys haven't played the game yet, when you do find the Star League Cache of Brian with the like all different like you get the Highlander, no unit in their right mind, I don't care how freaking big they are, would say, here's a Highlander, you 4 mechs, here, have this. No government in their right mind will do that. They will reverse engineer the Gauss rifle, reverse engineer the double heat sinks, all that kind of stuff. They'll send it to the NIS and basically say, here's double heat sinks, go build some, like let me go have the plan so I can build them like for my government type thing. But no, they will not give like a Leopard dropship full of a bunch of spiders and and medium mechs. Here's a Highlander. Thank you for helping us. It's like, no, wouldn't happen. It's just,
well,
I'm
the
sorry.
problem with this game and its direction is it makes the player such a special snowflake. You are given a Star League ship. You don't earn it. You are given a Star League mech. You don't necessarily, I mean, you do a big fight for it, I guess, but again, you didn't really earn it in Universe. And that's sort of, I wanted the periphery to be this place where I'm crawling my way up from the bottom, and every step of the way is, a struggle.
Yeah.
But in this one, Lady Arado says, I'm not a hero, but you are so wonderful. Here, have a Starlink tech. Do you remember the Star League? No, shut up about the Star League. I know the Star League's kind of cool and interesting, but care about the very place that we're having the fight in. They're part of ancient history. Like, to make an analogy, you guys know about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. No, I never watched it before.
So, big part of Lord of the Rings, of course, you start in Hobbiton. It's a lovely country town, happy country life and all that type of stuff. And you follow the hobbits and all this and that. And the hobbits are like your everyman, going through this big, giant, huge world. But, it's like someone, I'm going to make a video game about Lord of the Rings set in Hobbiton. And, hey, and my intro cinematic's going to be, do you know about the elves? The elves were really cool. Look at Legolas. He's awesome. And I'm like, yes, I know people love Legolas. He is kind of cool. But what about the hobbits? What about where we are? That place is way more like, you want to contrast the hobbits with the crazy magical rings and powers and stuff that the elves have. If you just keep talking about the elves, you're just an elf fanboy.
Well, the elves were more of everyone loves the elves type thing. They're mysterious and they live long and they have magical powers and they have magical super duper swords and they've been in every single battle since 2,000 years from 2,000 years ago. So they had to do that kind of stuff to make it like get people like interested. I mean, hobbits, they're fat. They eat a lot. They have 6 meals a day. They basically grow like turnips and everything. I mean, not really a lot of things for hobbits.
I actually like the analogy though, because that one line you just said, you're just gonna be an elf fanboy. I think that's really accurate for a lot of the Battletech fans. I would totally define myself a Star League hardcore fanboy, and I am happy with the Star League part of the game, even though I agree the progression was completely destroyed by the Highlander. But that's beyond the current point. So I'm not mad about that, but I find it really interesting that the perspectives are that different in that case.
Well,
I'm a Periphery fanboy.
I'm a bit more of a Periphery fanboy because I'm hearing, just like this game is made by elf fanboys, and it's just like people keep talking about the elves, and I'm like, no, we have to remember our roots. We have to remember the gritty, how much you have to struggle to get to just where we are. And if we just fantasize about all the most special things, then we just have our heads in the clouds, and it doesn't make those clouds so special. It's not so special when being in a plane if all you talk about is flying. You have to remember what it's like being on the ground. And not only that, the Periphery is not the best place to be a Star League fanboy, particularly right next to the Turian Concordant. God damn it! The Turian Concordant were on the same level as some of the other great houses, but they have a very strong independent streak. A lot of people who don't want all the clutter and civilization go to the periphery, and that's where a lot of people went to, the Taurian Concordant. They have a very independent streak, and the Taurians had a huge emphasis on education, trade, warfare. They have they're kind of a parallel to the Davians, except there was this little reunification war where the Star League invades all of the periphery nations who want to remain independent. You're going to be part of the Star League whether you like it or not. And not only that, the Taurian Concordant got nuked, biologically bombed, starved, like every horrible atrocity in the book. And how does Lady Arana recall all of this? I mean, it's to her neighbors, but the Arana, correlation has no history with the Star League or something like that. I don't know what the details in that are, but she's just like, oh, the Star League, they were heroes. Remember when they were like Hitler and Stalin to the cubed? Remember when they killed trillions? Wasn't that beautiful? They were keepers of the peace. They bombed the Taurian Concordant into the Stone Age. Wasn't that beautiful? What? No!
You are so British right now. I love it.
That is not beautiful, Lady Arano. That's awful. The atrocities that are happening in this game is the same as those beautiful Star League heroes. What's wrong with you?
I guess it's a matter of God, I can't even talk. I was laughing so hard I coughed. I guess it's a matter of perception because. Hold on a second. Okay. It's a matter of perception. So like, let's say on the periphery worlds, there's a hint of a Star League Brian cache. God, I can't even talk right now. A hint of a Brian Star League cache. Literally, people from all around the states, the normal states and the periphery, everybody comes and bombards that planet just to go find that stash. So it's a matter of perspective of how people like the Star League because they want to get the tech to go use for their houses or the whatever. But you put a great analogy like on that though. Wasn't the Star League great? But it's like, oh whoa, hold a second. They bombed, killed trillions of people. They murdered, basically you either stay with us or we're gonna just kill you all. And that's a good perspective. Well, not a good perspective, but that's a great that's a great analogy of what actually happened during the reunification war. The Rimworld Republic. It's perfect. Oh
it's at least given this context, I'm a little troubled by the Star League fanboyism of this game because it forgets all the history and depth that you could totally have been putting into this game. You have this really gritty world where you're slowly climbing up and you get a Star League cache, but there's actually, people talk about what the Star League was in the past and they don't talk about it in such a great light. It's like, yes, they had brilliant technology, but they used that brilliant technology to bomb us and kill us. That isn't so beautiful in the end, is it?
But it's been like over, like 450 years. So like a lot of that actually got, wiped away through time. So all they were is like, the Knights of the Star League, they were, protectors of the realm, wanted to unite everybody, but they don't like tell you about, they bombed the city next door to us, type thing a long time ago. But they don't really see that aspect. They just hear Knights of the Knights of IanDresarie or Knights of the Star League, and they're protectors of the realms, all that kind of stuff, and that's all they really know.
Of interest, at least with the Taurian Concordant, is of course they in the lore they even say stuff like they have MMOs, video games where people replay the unification wars, where basically they're holding out against the Star League. So obviously the Taurian Concordant, I very strongly remember the Star League as the bad guys, at least for their cultural identity. And you would think at least the Taurians are going to have some rubbing off on the coalition. But it should be noted at least that the Taurian Concordant and the people in the coalition all were under the Star League's education system, which wasn't necessarily made for good citizens, but was very good. Its intended purpose was to indoctrinate people to love the Star League.
Yes, that's what I was about to mention. Like, winners write the history. And the atrocities Spider mentioned mostly happened throughout in the first decade or so of the Star League. The unification war wasn't actually that long compared to the existence of the Star League. And then they had that golden age with as he mentioned, quite a bit of indoctrination. So I can see why not everyone would hate the Star League in 3025 in that area. But I do agree, some kind of double perspective would have been really interesting.
Well,
Now, some of the sources I looked through cover, you know, they have the Reunification War, but immediately after, there's the second invasion of the Periphery, and this affects all of the nations in
Yeah.
the Periphery, and that is almost sort of, I guess, the closest allegory is sadly what the migrant crisis in Europe. We're just, except in this case, it's sort of, hey, all the authority of the Taurian Concordance been stripped away. The place is almost completely lawless. The Star League isn't actually looking after it very well. So all the criminal elements, all the Yakuza or whatever, just flood into the periphery and make it so, so incredibly lawless. It just makes the place, doubly worse. They were nuked into the ground, and then all the horrible criminal under elements seep into the periphery.
Well, plus also too, the only let's say basically it was like 400 years, right? So your planet that got nuked and got killed, like everything, then you start coming up from the ashes. You become like a farming society. So basically, you do stuff to survive. And then the only education they really got was from traders that will be from different parts of the inner sphere that will come in and say, hey, we got give us your food and we'll trade you oil for your hay or whatever. So the only education that we got was, oh, we have some books. Here's here's some books for this. Like you said, winners write the history, and also they'll have teachings. Different groups of inner sphere groups will go over to the periphery and just actually have dropship comes down. They set up a classroom for the kids. Here's the here's our history of like whatever basically, and that's how they actually got a lot of their a lot of their education after the war.
So I know at least in the Taurian Concordance part, they had Tarabadurs, people who go around and remind people of the history of the Taurian Concordance. It actually reminds me a bit of my girlfriend talking about what her grand told her in Lithuania with the communists in charge, and them wanting to make Lithuanians speak, all of them speak Russian, and people had to, trade the Lithuanian language back in the day, to keep it alive. So it just at least from me personally, at least, having been in Lithuania for a while and gone and seen the sites and heard the stories from the people, at least I connected quite a bit with the history of the Taurian Concordance because it resonated with my partner's familial history, kind of, so to speak. But the Taurian Concordance in this game ostensibly is sort of the bad guys, and we never really see any of this depth. I only really connected with it by reading the source material.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we have the Regan correlation, which we have almost no depth in their history, other than they sort of were subsumed by the larger houses nearby and were part of the Star League, but kind of forgotten area. What would you say is the nature of the Regan correlation? Like, it's called a coalition. They talk about the founding houses.
Yeah, that's interesting because, as you mentioned, there's no background story for the coalition. It's something that was completely invented for the Battletech game.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, within the setting of the periphery, from what I can tell from the game, I'm gonna assume it's some kind of semi-democratic coalition of mostly independent systems. At least that's what it was in the beginning, as far as I can tell. And I assume they realized that combined they stand a better chance against their mighty neighbors, the Taurians. And that kind of brought them together over the next couple decades and giving them somewhat of a unified setting. But then again, even during the campaign, it's fairly obvious that not all the lords of the coalition really agree with each other. So it's kind of a ragtag band of lords who realize that they have to work together in order to survive, but who don't really want to work together.
Well, it's kind of like Star Trek with the United Federation of Planets. It's the same concept. So you got a bunch of planets and say, hey, let's go do some trade. Oh, hey, let's create a united, federation. Get, say, the Klingons or Romulans. So the same concept actually would apply to what this place is, and that's what probably like what it was.
Yeah, the best source for this is probably the Kickstarter updates, because that's where
Yes.
they actually describe the setting. In game, it almost does nothing with the Oregon Coalition. It does not have much in the way of world building. It doesn't do much to make their culture and people come through to the audience. But yeah, they are very much like a band of 5 city states, or 5 planet states in this case. Kind of your, it's a bit like Venice, Milan, and Genoa. Just formed a loose coalition saying, we might as well just say we're friends.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the odd thing, at least with this whole grander story, is the call to arms, the reason why there's this whole conflict in the first place. Do you guys know what that is? It is hinted at the beginning.
Can you put your questions slightly different for me?
So what's the what prompts this whole civil war in the first place?
The conflict between the dead lord and his daughter and the uncle. Do you mean that?
Between the uncle and why did the uncle stage the coup?
Actually, it's been so long since I played the first part of that, I forgot.
So basically, the uncle wanted to go further into the unified kind of thing with one absolute ruler, and the niece wanted to go back to a more democratic system. That's what I've gathered from the beginning.
Somewhat. The ultimate cause, at least as far as I'm aware, is they say the kingdom is in decline. The kingdom slowly wastes away whilst the council deliberates and the economy falters. And that is why he says the ends justify the means. That's the part of her talking about the ends justify. They think the ends justify the means, but she claims that the strength is built on fear is brittle. Blah blah blah. But yeah, they wanted to expand their industry and yet centralize power. So it's not just like he felt like, today it's a Wednesday, I'm a bit bored, time to just centralize all the power. He wants to centralize the power because the kingdom is, for some reason, or the whole coalition is in decline. That its economy is faltering. We don't know why it's faltering, but for me, that is a cause for him to rally behind and to get all the support he did. Because if he does it just on a whim, and these are just several city-states, then okay, sure, maybe you and your house can win over your little city-state. But how are you going to assert your will over the others and take them over? They're going to fight back because you are still rather autonomous. They're a coalition. They're just separate little city-states. They aren't. You can't just sort of take the throne and then all the whole army will bow to you. It doesn't work like that in a coalition like this.
Maybe next game that Harebrained Schemes does, or since they have the base work done as far as like how the mechanics work and everything, maybe they'll put more emphasis on story than anything else, and just like we're talking about, immersion effect into the game to just make it a little bit better. Of course, for us, we're lore freakazoids, and so we're a little bit, we have a different opinion about like the standard person, basically the standard person who plays the game. But they wanted to reach out a wide audience, and I do understand they had to dumb down the story, dumb down the game, dumb down the lore, like a lot, like the periphery. So wanted to have a wider audience, trying to get them into buying the game. Because I know there's a lot of people that they played the one person played the game, say, hey, check out this game, then they bought the game, but the guy never even heard of BattleTech. So he got a little bit of story, a little bit of mech on mech combat, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, turn-based system. And so maybe next game that they could actually put more emphasis on to immersion effect into the periphery and how it really works.
So I would like to interject 2 things here. First off, there's not going to be a next game anytime soon. Period. Battletech is Battletech. Battletech is going to be expanded through expansions and free updates.
Tomorrow. It's coming out tomorrow, dude. Did you know that?
They will not do a Battletech 2 anytime soon. So that's something to really mention here. Like, you don't have, if you're watching this, you will not have to spend another $40 to buy a Battletech 2 anytime soon. You will get expansions and free updates.
Okay,
And-
fine. Okay, fine. The next expansion would, the Fourth Succession War. How's that?
Okay, so yeah, that's something I also wanted to segue. And since we like to end on a positive note here, what could HBS do that's fairly simple to tackle a lot of the issues we just discussed? I've got one idea I just want to talk about real quick. You know that time frame between you losing your blackjack during the intro thingy and then your first actual combat mission? Those 3 years that just don't happen in the game?
Yeah.
How about an expansion that fills those 3 years with content? That would both tackle the story thing, because you could put a lot of background story in those 3 years. For example, you could learn about what the coalition is doing to boost up their economy. But also it would get the point across with starting from nothing and trying to build lands. Because as far as I remember, the Merc unit you join during those 3 years was pretty beaten up on the planet. So you could realistically do the setting of you start with 4 light mechs or 3 light mechs and a blackjack, and then you slowly, very slowly, over 3 years, build your way toward the starting lands you have at the beginning of the current campaign. And
That might just make you look really incompetent for quite some time.
yeah, probably. And I think that would be fun. So that's my idea. How about you guys?
I would agree with that in the sense that if they make it, you actually have to scramble up and they make the mechanics a lot more gritty and give this game some actual heart and soul. I would totally love that expansion, even if it is shoved into a little portion of a much more lifeless, grander experience. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, that expansion, it's a cool idea. I love the concept, love the idea. The problem is, though, like, as far as a marketing standpoint, the end game, it's like, did you watch the movie about Titanic? Well, yeah, no, but everyone dies. Basically everyone dies at the end except for like 1 or 2 people, and plus the boat sinks. It's kind of like, your whole campaign is based off of Cthulhu destroying the ship. And then your campaign name at the convention is, Cthulhu destroys a ship. So like, you really kind of know exactly what's going to go on anyways until the end. For people like us, we know that there's going to be 4 mechs, at the end of blackjack and like whatever it is that you have left. So it's a marketing standpoint would really pan out because we know exactly what's going to be going on.
I agree, but here's the beautiful thing as an expansion.
Well,
If
yeah.
you don't care about those 3 years, you don't have to buy it.
Oh no,
And
I
that's
would
what I
love
like
it.
about this concept.
I would love it. And it's just, me, I was just like, hell yeah, let's go do this type of thing. But that's just me, because me and you and a couple other people, because we're lore freakazoids. And so we'll love that concept of, what happened during those 3 years. But as far as the mass majority public wise, you really wouldn't put your resources like into that. Yeah, I would love it. I would love it though.
Yeah. I would say at least this is feeds into the whole grander theme I had talked about before, at least, where the game thematically, its mechanics, its story, and all that doesn't mesh. It doesn't fit together. All the story missions that we go through, it's just people sitting around, and it's, as I said, like, it's a quick conversation where lots of major strategic decisions happen around you. It's a bit like you're all talking about what fast food restaurant you're going to go to this afternoon. So I was just sort of saying, oh,
McDonald's.
I'd like to go to McDonald's. Oh, I just had McDonald's yesterday. Can we go to Burger King? Oh, I don't really like their burgers. Well, can we go to Pizza Hut? Well, that's the other way across town. Oh, fine, we'll go to the local Sloppy Joe's. And that is indeed a way to tell your story, but when it's major war stuff going on, plot twists and turns, the big events going on, it just doesn't fit me. And the same thing as well with its thematic choices. As I've been trying to describe, at least, like the game doesn't have, it has the sort of, it wanks off the Star League more than actually trying to set a gritty periphery experience. It's the main character isn't even the player, it's Lady Orano. And they try and address this by her saying, "Oh well, I'm not important. You're the hero."
Well, she has to say that.
Who's a good little mercenary? Who's a good boy? You did good. Yes, you did. Good. Have a Starlink ship. Well, okay, thanks. Bye.
Have a Starlink ship and a Highlander, the most two rarest things on the whole universe. You have them just because.
But the whole storyline is reuniting the correlation and giving each, allowing each of these individual city-states their own autonomy again. But they're all flying under Lady Arano's flag, and she's like, "Oh, people won't remember. I made mistakes, very vague, nebulous mistakes. Whereas you gave people hope. No, everyone's under your banner, miss. Everyone's doing this for you. You're going to be the one remembered. You're the one who gave everyone hope. We don't remember the guy with the club."
I think we talked about this before, but Ian, you have a good idea, like with the 3 years thing. I love it myself. And then they could also do the third, Forced Succession War, the Ronin War, and then bring it up to the clans, because everyone also has been foaming at the mouth for the clans, and it's been a lot of mods for the clans and clan technology and the Starly techs, and you could go off in their sphere and do missions and all kind of stuff. So it's out there, and they have common place to do multiple things in the game to actually grow the game, which is great.
I would say, in my personal opinion, the 3 years thing where you're slowly climbing up the ranks is totally kind of the story that this setting, this place, and this universe should have had. But given the tools they have and the direction they've got, it's much more about the power fantasy. And to that end, you want the player character to be the main character. You want to expand the management mechanics. You want to emphasize the player's tactical choices and starting role-playing decisions. So if you say your background history is pirates, then you could sort of you could decide to deploy much closer to the enemy, like land on top of them.
That'd be kind of cool, yeah.
If you're a Solaris gladiator, you could have certain perks to just your pilot, to just your battle mech kind of thing, etc., etc. I think, given the baseline mechanics, this game has a mindset towards being a power fantasy. So make me an important general of one of the inner sphere houses fighting against another inner sphere house, and go from there. That is a much better, a lot less steps needed from the starting materials, because at least with how they've made the game thus far, it doesn't fit the periphery.
Well, hold on, wait a second.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, basically, how many times have we seen Twitter posts of look up my King Crab Lance or my Atlas Lance, and there's a power fantasy there to go destroy anything on the freaking board. I mean, literally, and they modified the mechs too at the same time. so there's a huge power creep and power fantasy in the game itself, and so.
If I was a general of in Davian, for example, it would make some sense that I would be given the Starlink ship rather than just this random merc unit. Yeah. It would make sense that I get first dibs on that special Highlander. Thank you very much. And it would also then make sense that my name is remembered in history, and it just make the player character the main character, make them more special. At least given this general context. Otherwise, it's funny. At least
I agree with, by the way.
Yeah. In terms of setting and world stuff, check out Battlefleet Gothic's cutscenes if anyone hasn't played through or seen that game before. They do a very similar thing where they have you plonk down your ships and you fight against each other, just like a Battletech. But they also build about 30 minutes of pre-rendered cutscenes. Where they've got just people doing lots of art and then stuff goes on. But that game has way more personality with its music and with its cutscenes, and it's way more economical with its story, and it tells a much more complicated story. So in terms of storytelling, take some really good notes from Battlefleet Gothic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So since we are getting close to the time limit, or actually technically we're over, I have one question for the two of you that might be a good wrapping up point.
42.
Okay, then I've got one question for you, Bida, that might be a good wrapping up point. So for the first paid expansion, do you think we're gonna get an expansion that expands the current campaign, or creates a completely new campaign for the game?
I honestly am not sure what they will have decided in-house. The storyline they've done is fairly wrapped up by the end. You've gone through the whole Civil War, and there's not much further beyond that. Like, ironically, for the whole main storyline, it's, oh no, the economy is faltering, I'm gonna do some radical takeover. Then a huge war happens and everything's in tatters. And it's like, well done, guys. You now live in even bigger ruins. It's not happy ending. And Lady Arano, given her, being sycophantic towards the player, does not seem like a good leader either. She does not seem like the type of person who's actually going to help the Oregon Coalition. So, from my perspective, at least, the Oregon Coalition's done. It hasn't got personality. It's in ruins. The leader sucks.
Yeah.
Let's go somewhere else.
I would probably say they'll probably go into a whole another thing, another game with the Force Succession War, because then you can actually be a merc unit and have bigger units. Like instead of 4, you have 12, or whatever basic combined arms. We talked about that like before. There we have the engine already installed on that. So they can actually go and, you're going to be part of Davion against Lao, or you're going to be Lao against Davion, like whatever, basically. And so, it gets into the more of the Force Succession War to put, and then they could do more storylines. They could do more stuff in the game, put little, doohickey things in there, like whatever. And I would probably say that's going to go towards that end.
My one big estimation would be perhaps at least, if we're jumping forward in time or whatever, the way to save a lot of assets and time is to follow the Argo. Your Merc unit, comes and goes, but somebody else picks up the Argo and it's in tatters again. That would be my guess, at least, is that we follow the Argo through its trip through the galaxy. That's
actually a good idea. That's really good, because then, your Merc unit, and then you find the story of, old Bob's cutthroats, was on this one planet and they got overrun, and then the Argo crashed there or something like that, and then you're another Merc unit, go, look, there's an Argo, let's go fix it up and go use it now, type thing.
Can I just say I'm kind of amazed right now, because that's exactly what my suggestion would have been.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, and
hey, brother, great minds think alike.
And as Old Bob sort of said, in terms of marketing, you could do stuff like, hey guys, look, it's in this place, but you're in the Argo again, but it looks different. It now has spikes on it.
Okay, let's not go there.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap up before it gets out of hand. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the First Circuit Podcast, episode 44. I hope it's the correct number, because I did not scroll up this time around.
Oh, shit.
Your hosts today were Bida. Say goodbye.
I wanted to say my bit.
Whatever. Old Bob.
Hello.
Who says hello as a goodbye? Whatever.
Hello.
And my name's been IanDresarie. Thank you very much for watching, and tune in next
Oh,
week.
wait, hold on. It's 45, by the way.
Goodness.
It's 45, by the way, not 44.
Don't you dare mess
No.
with me.
I have 40. I'm looking at 44 like right now. I'm looking at 44. It's 45.
Bob?
No, it's 40.
I hate you.
It's 45. Right.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you later, now, guys.